let you go. There's no way. I'm already still burning. So hold me close. Now, baby, I do what I'm told. Still learning to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line. Yeah, you got me shifting the paradigm. No longer wishing. You're my lucky strike. Love the way you ride. Look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1 million life, yeah. We could roll the dice. Act like you're surprised, but you already know. Oh yeah, got lucky overnight. Jackpot when I got the invite. Let me wrap my arms around you, 'cause I can't go home without you. And my heart just vibe with you, babe. Wanna go sky high with you, babe. Gotta bring you close to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. Cooler than cold, I'm all in. So load up the dice, so heavy. The way that you roll, I'm falling. So I never fall. I'm ready to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line. Yeah, you got me shifting the paradigm. No longer wishing. You're my lucky strike. Yeah. Love the way you ride. Look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1 million life, yeah. We could roll the dice. Yeah. Act like you surprised, but you already know. You're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. I can't let you go. There's no way. I'm already still burning. So hold me close. Now, baby, I do what I'm told. Still learning to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line. Yeah, you got me shifting the paradigm. No longer wishing.
See, Jonathan gets it. Jonathan knows what's going on here. You get a
That's
little
right.
air guitar, a little air bass. You can have a lot of fun jamming your way in on the RecPoker podcast. So, all right, well, thanks everybody for joining us. You know you're for a treat when you hear that tune, because that means it's time for another edition of the RecPoker podcast. I'm excited to say this is episode number 593. And this is the chats edition of the show, where we talk to luminaries from the poker world in our interview session once a week. But we also have a forums edition where we just talk strategy. We're going to be talking a little strategy with Jonathan and Grant. You know them as two poker guys from the Breakdown a little later, but first I have to tell you a little bit about what's going on here. First of all, I'm your host. My name's Jim Reed. I'm Bluffsterini in the home game and at RecPoker Jim on Twitter. And I have the best freaking job in the world hosting the RecPoker podcast here on Monday night, live on YouTube every week, live at 7:30 Eastern. And you can show up for free and win a prize just for showing up. I have to mention that we're brought to you by the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. They're the official sponsor of the RecPoker podcast, and we really depend on their support and the support of our premium members because most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization, and you can come get a free account at RecPoker right now. All it takes is an email address and a smile. But if you want to go to the next level and get RecPoker Premium, you can get it for only $5 for your first month by using the code RecPoker at checkout. So a couple things I just have to mention. Unfortunately, speaking of Running Aces, they've had to postpone some of their summer promotional events. We will not be having RecPoker Weekend of Running Aces on August 2nd and 3rd. Big bummer. But we'll make up for that with another event sometime this fall or winter. And to kind of take some of the sting out of that, we are starting the World Series of RecPoker, a series of online events you can find out more about at rec.poker/WORSRP, WSORP. God damn it. We'll put the links to that in the show notes as well. So come and check that out. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have some more details about that later on. Now, okay. They let me host the show on Mondays, but I am just one man. It takes a group, a gang, a crew to make the magic happen over here. We called our group of wizards the Wrecking Crew. And if you want to find out more about me or the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew or just listen up. You're going to meet a few of them tonight right here on the show, starting with none other than producing co-host Chris Jones.
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the Poker Stars home game, and I help run our monthly deep dive strategy segment.
And I'm John Somsky, also known as Poker Geek MN Everywhere, and I help host our home games.
And my name's Rob Washin. You can find me as Rabman50 just about everywhere. And on the first and third Wednesdays of every month, we go through and discuss various poker books. We're currently talking about Excelling at No Limit Hold'em by Jonathan Little and others.
That's right. Just a little taster's choice of the smorgasbord of Wrecking Crew activities that we have here at RecPoker every day, week, and month. Come check us out and join up for free. All right. Well, we have the pleasure of being joined by Jonathan Levy and Grant Dennison. We've spoken a few times before, guys. I tell you, you got a branding problem. I want to say they're the two poker guys. I want to say they're from the poker podcast, The Breakdown with the two poker guys. When you define your own role in the poker world, how do you describe yourself, this super duo? And like, if someone didn't know anything about you, how would you explain your role in the poker world today?
That's been a struggle since we began the brand, to be honest. And it's partially because it's more about when people ask, what do you do for a living? And the answer is a combination of poker and poker content. Like, I'm a poker player and an influencer, but I swear I'm not a serial killer like it sounds like based on me saying that. Like,
Sure.
So, but we go by the poker guys is the most common. The two just comes from Twitter handles being taken at the time that we made the Twitter account. And it, was definitional of the amount of us.
But you are right that we do have a bit of a branding problem there. I had a guy who came up to me the other day. I'm in Puerto Rico. He came up to me and said, "It's one of the poker bros. I love the poker bros." And like, good enough, close enough. Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So it is a thing.
If you're listening at home and you don't know who Dos Poker Bros, as they go by officially, you could just Google Dos Poker Bros and these two will come up, I'm sure. But in all honesty, one of the most fun times you can have listening to a poker podcast is by tuning into The Breakdown. You guys have been doing this for a long time. You've really found your rhythm. You go very deep into the analysis of one poker hand per episode. You've been doing it for a while now. Tell me a little bit about sort of what it feels like looking back on quite a legacy of poker podcasts at this point.
Go ahead, Grant.
All right,
please
I'll go.
Speak to it, Grant.
Okay, this feels like my question. Sure, I'll do this one.
For sure.
Well, we actually have more than 593, which is a number that I think is important to have more than. It's a good it's a good amount to have.
That's smart. That's wise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's how you know you've
that's
made
kind
it.
of like a delineation between a great podcast and a good podcast is right
Good
there.
point. Yep,
Yeah.
that's fair. Fair.
No, but I look back and the legacy for me in my personal life has been, I'm not sure where the most money has been generated from it, from the sponsorships or from me getting better at poker by having to think about it the way that Jonathan and I force ourselves to think about it. Because I've had a lot of success in poker since we began the podcast. And, I was already a winning poker player, professional poker player when we started it. But of course, the times have changed and poker has gotten tougher and everybody's gotten better. But I feel like my growth has been accelerated by doing this podcast. So for my personal life legacy, the learning that I get by doing the podcast has probably been the biggest impact. As far as a legacy in the poker world, I feel like there was a moment in 2016 where we were really blowing up on YouTube and it felt like we were going to become a really big thing, and that didn't happen. And the trajectories kind of changed, so we're kind of just like this steady, solid. We have our people that listen to us for a decade and we like what we do and we have fun, but we never reached that level of like poker B-list plus.
We would definitely never like put ourselves in the same conversation with like Dan Negreanu or Doug Polk. That's for other people to do for us, I think.
Yes.
And it would come off as a lack of humility if we did it
would.
ourselves, I think.
No, you don't want it. You need an intermediary there for sure.
Yeah. Otherwise, we text it to each other. I don't think we really have. I don't think we have any legacy or anything personally. I mean, I guess we have a very small one. We have some very hardcore fans, and they're excellent, and they're but I don't know. Like, if there's a big, if we Grant got hit by a bus tomorrow, and I replace him with someone else, would anyone notice? I'm not sure.
That was mean. That was kind of mean.
Question.
Sorry.
It's a fair question. Fine. You guys don't mind tackling the hypotheticals, though. That's one of the things I like about your show.
That is true.
You ask the tough questions. I will point out that a lot. I mean, say what you will. You've got quite a following amongst RecPoker as well. I mean, our own producing co-host Chris Jones features non-trivially in your episodes. And you guys like to punch down at us. I've noticed quite a bit. Yeah. Which there's room for that. There's room for that in the poker world. So kudos. Well, any news is good news. John Somsky, save me. You unmuted. What's on your mind?
Well, I have a question specifically for Grant. So it's a hypothetical. If Jonathan Levy were to get hit by a bus tomorrow and you replaced him with someone else, would anyone notice?
No, of course not.
Okay.
You just gotta fight I mean, there's a lot of guys in Puerto Rico who are kind of like Jonathan. I just find another one and that would be fine.
Yeah. I like you guys are. No, Jonathan, please respond.
I'm just saying, I'm the king of the podcast opening, and no one can replace that. And that is my legacy, actually, now that I think about it.
But who would, if I weren't there, who would actually do the poker analysis and know what they were talking about?
No one. No one would. That's true. Yeah. But that's not why people listen.
I think if you got ChatGPT hooked on LSD, that would be a good replacement for you, Jonathan.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Right now, but give it a month. Things are moving so fast.
Yeah, they can. I mean, they're creating the synthetic LSD for AI, right? They already hallucinate, so why not?
There you go. That is very forward thinking. That's John Somsky in a nutshell. He's always looking to the future. That's one thing you can count on.
Techno optimist like Jonathan.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh God, how are you a techno optimist in this world? Okay, well hold on.
Okay.
No, we don't want to go. As my wife would say, pull up. Pull up.
That's a good save. We were just about to go off track for about 20 minutes.
I know. No, next time. Let's get a couple pints next time we're in the same town and do that one in person. So I will say we've got a fantastic YouTube following. If you're here live watching the show right now, feel free to type any questions into the chat that you have for Jonathan and Grant. And of course, we're also going to give away a prize at the end of the show as part of our food bank raffle. So stick around to the end of that. And of course, I got to mention, we recently hit 1,000 YouTube subscribers. So we're like in the big time now, gang. And if you want to make a donation to RecPoker to help what we're doing, you can do that by typing in a super chat. And we share a portion of all the donations we receive through YouTube with a local food bank. So get active in the YouTube chat there, type your questions in, and stick around to the end so you can win a prize to help support a local food bank. So I don't see any questions right now, but throw them in there. Guys, I wanted to ask, you get lots of people submit hands to you through the Discord, on Twitter, through smoke signals in your dreams. I understand you have a lot of ways for people to contact you. How do you choose what makes an interesting hand?
Number one, it can't be just a cooler that would be played that way no matter what. And we have gotten many of those suggestions because they're big, showy hands, but there has to be some level of analysis that can be done. That's probably the most important thing. Beyond that, there's a huge swath of types of hands that we'll pick. We'll pick a hand that feels rudimentary to us, even if it feels like a lot of the more advanced listeners might not get a lot out of it. There's still some points that can be made and elaborated on that we can really go deep on. And sometimes we pick a hand that we're like, I have no fucking idea what Sam Soverel just did, but I'm going to try my best to figure it out. And so it just has to be interesting, and it could be a lot of different levels of play of poker.
Yeah, that was actually my next question, because I think it's kind of hard to curate the content that you're putting out, because you want it to be reflective of an exciting part of poker, but you also want it to be something that the audience can relate to. And we're not all playing like high roller events against the best players in the world. Do you try and balance that sort of application versus aspirational effect of the hands?
I don't think we do, honestly. I think we're much more interested in, I'm personally interested in hands that I don't understand. Mm-hmm. So someone does something that I don't get what just happened or why they did that, then that's the hand I want to do. If it's a good player, especially someone who's very successful, so they aren't just randomly clicking buttons, that's the hand I want to do a breakdown. And then Grant and I do our best to figure it out, on the show. And sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, honestly. But I think we have a relatively, I've learned more about poker that way in the last 10 years than any other way, is us sort of trying to reverse engineer these high level hands. We've always been pretty clear that we want to do these things for us as much as for anyone else, even more so. It's got to be something that really feeds us. So that's why we do the humor that we do. That's why we take, 10 minutes before we really get to the hand, because we enjoy hanging out with each other and we enjoy messing around. So we do, because that's what makes us want to keep coming back and still do this podcast every week. And so it's always been like that. And so sometimes we can't find a great hand that mystifies us. So then we're looking at other hands too. I think it's more like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to elaborate a little bit on how we choose the hands and why we choose the hands that we choose, it's really mostly about entertainment, honestly. So even though the listeners may not be able to relate to, a Triton high roller hand, and neither can Jonathan and I, to be clear, we were never going to play those things. Even if I had the money to play that, I'm not going to go burn money. No, thank you. But I think there is still there's entertainment value in what we do and how we do it. But beyond that, you can learn through the thought process that we present. It's not just about having a thought process about the game that you're in, but the thought process that applies to all of poker. And sometimes we go down the winding road of the higher level players, and it takes us to a place that you're never going to be in a 1-2 or a 2-5 game, but it still has applicable theories and general concepts that you can use if you over time just kind of sort of absorb the types of things that we're talking about. And I think that's where the educational component comes into the podcast. It doesn't necessarily have to be the stakes that the listener is playing.
Yep, great answer. Chris Jones, jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of jump in and, both of you, I'm a fan. And one of the things I've heard you describe your show from early days was kind of just what you said, Jonathan, was this idea of we want to explore decisions in hands that maybe we don't even understand what's going on in some of the top players' minds. And I'm just kind of curious, the more you've done it, you have more than 593 episodes, so congratulations on that.
Very impressive.
It is very impressive. So the more that you've done it, and the more that poker has just become more of a technical game, and we've got all this information and solver out there, are you still finding as many of those moments, or is it more of a struggle now that you've kind of done so many hands, plus the game is getting more and more technical? Do you still find those moments where you're like, I still don't know what Stephen Chidwick's doing here?
I would say
Yes.
yes. I definitely still find, yeah, we find those moments for sure. One of the best things about poker is that it's an iterated game, right? So the best players have to keep evolving against each other, otherwise they're going to figure each other out. Like Michael Adamo, actually not just Adamo. Every 2 years, there's someone goes on a big run in the high roller circuit, and then everyone like puts their heads together, figures them out a little bit. This is my working theory, and can't be taken advantage of exactly in the same way. And that doesn't, I'm sure those guys are running hot too. There's other things going on, but I think that's part of it anyway. And so Adamo was playing a really different game than pretty much everyone else a few years ago. And I think we've seen the entire like high end, high level circuit play adapt a bit to making these bigger bets than they were making before. Much bigger bets on the turn, much bigger bets on the river. They have the nuts. They're not betting 1.2 times the pot. They're betting 3 times the pot sometimes, which is Adamo was doing 3 years ago, but almost no one else was doing that with any regularity. Other things are happening too, but I see like it's like a race. And so when Adamo sees them doing that, he's got to again, readjust his game. And it's a constant arms race between the Bonomo's and the Damos and Negranos of the world. And so I think there's always going to be things where we're like, what just happened with that guy? Why did Bonomo do that? I don't find it's running out at all.
No, and I find that we come up with interesting theories that may or may not be accurate based on us trying to guess what these guys are doing. Like about a year and a half ago, we came up with Sean Wintering it when Sean Winter was doing like in multiple hands that we did these very strange small bets in spots that we never see anybody make small bets or any bet at all. And we're trying to figure out exactly what he's doing. And we thought, well, our best guess was that he was trying to keep all of his options open so he could represent whatever he wanted to represent later in the hand. And that's not something that we had seen before, because it was like from all of the game theory that we were apprised on at the time, we're like, this is just a terrible bet by objective standards, right? Like, so when we see a spot like that done by a player that we need to give credit to, we try to take the time to dissect why they might be doing it, because they probably know a lot more than us about why they're doing it. And there's going to be a good reason. It's not like these guys are doing this flippantly. They're playing for millions of dollars.
I love that you used that as an example. I remember that episode and that sort of the ability to continue telling the story. You're like he was just sort of like keeping his range uncapped on future streets, essentially by the smaller sizes. Do you find yourselves making these sort of predictions or theories and then get sort of like totally proven wrong later, or talk to someone who was in the position and they're like, oh no, that wasn't all what I was thinking, or do you also get a sense of actually that was what they were thinking? How often do you get to test your theories against the reality of the player?
Almost never. I mean, there's the Sam, what was the player Sam Trickett story, where it wasn't about a theory, but he made a play against Jason Mercier. This was like in 2016 or something. And we were 100% convinced it was, I don't even remember what at this
value.
point.
We thought it was value, and it turned out it was a bluff. He bet top pair, I think, on the river and folded out pocket aces when he had like queen 8 on a queen high board. And we were like, that's value. And then Sam himself tweeted out that we were wrong, and it was in fact not value. It was in fact a bluff, targeting exactly pocket aces.
So that wasn't a theory thing. So that's the only thing we've ever gotten real feedback from the player who played the hand. I think if Sean Winter is actually Sean Wintering it, I don't think he would ever reveal that to the world. I mean,
we hear from other players though sometimes, Grant, like big name players sometimes will contact us and talk about what they were doing or what they were thinking when we're kicking stuff around. So that does happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's definitely like semi-regular, I would say.
It's always about individual hands. Like it's never about their overall theory about how they're going to play high rollers, because they don't want us putting that out to the world, I'm pretty sure. So,
right. Yeah. I love that. So that's very cool. I think as listeners, we really benefit from, like I said earlier, like the hypotheticals, like all the different possibilities, if they're valid themselves, like are worth considering, and they might give us something to think about as well. What was that like? Do you guys remember like the first time in the history when you were doing the podcast where someone actually, like someone you respected, reached out and was like, hey, so you guys were talking about the this hand and you totally screwed it up? You're like, who was it and what was that feeling like?
I remember Vanessa Selpst reached out to us like in 2015, where we were very small at that point. Like, I don't think we had videos yet, or if we did, they were really new. We probably had less than 1,000 YouTube subscribers at that point, I would guess. And she basically wrote to us and said she listened to the whole episode and gave us a bunch of notes on it, basically. And it was really cool. And she said clearly some of the things we said were right, some of the things she thought we were really off on. But I think that was the first time we heard from someone at that level. Is that right, Grant?
Yeah, then it started happening a lot more regularly.
Yeah.
Like Daniel Negreanu was saying we got his hand exactly right one time, which was nice to hear, because there was this one particular YouTube troll who was like, I know everything about Negreanu in this era, and you were completely wrong. And Negreanu was like, no, this is 100% correct. You're right about this. Yeah,
that was nice.
That was cool.
We've also been called idiots by like Viffer and certainly Matt Berkey and others many times as well, just to balance that out. So
of course
we hear it from all sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we were really putting ourselves out there, and like, there's a reason that not many people do this version of this podcast where we analyze hands from the highest level. The other people who do it are like Daniel Negreanu and Doug Polk, who are playing those things, and we are not. So we're doing a slightly different thing than them. We're going in with the implicit admission that we are not at the level of the players that we're analyzing in many cases, but we're going to do our best to figure it out, and you get to hear our thought process. And that can generate some pushback from people who are like, why would I listen to this guy? And also sometimes from the players if we don't like what they do, such as Matt Berkey.
Right. Well, that's a very, we have a similar philosophy here as we go into our hand breakdowns as well. Like, we're recreational players, but we're, thoughtful, serious amateurs. And I think, the world can benefit from sort of seeing how relatively less experienced players think about the hands and the concepts and that sort of thing. So I appreciate that humility, and I appreciate that approach. Chris, you had another thing, I think.
Yeah, I was wondering, you mentioned a lot of this analysis, you'd never play in a Triton, and it might not apply to your 1-3-2-5, whatever kind of game that you're normally playing in. But I'm kind of curious, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're like, I'm going to try out this Sean Wintering thing, or I'm going to try to to 3x jam the pot like an Adamo play in a different kind of game, and found yourself in trouble because you're trying out some of the things you've been talking about on the pod?
In trouble, no. The most notable thing that we've done like that is I think it was 2017, Jonathan and I drove to Vegas from Portland for the World Series, and it's a 17-hour drive. And on the way back, we were just trying to pass the time, and we were doing a lot of, dumb bullshit, which is what we normally do when we're hanging out. But we also decided to come up with a limping strategy where we would have like 15% of the range that we play would be a limp range. And then we decided which hands would be limp raises and stuff like that. And we both tried to play it for a little while. And we both bailed on it because it wasn't really doing anything for us. But that's a version of us applying something that we took the theory of. I think it actually came from a pro, sort of, because I was playing with, God, I'm forgetting his name now. This kid that I think is really fun. Upeshka.
Wasn't it? Upeshka, yeah.
Upeshka da Silva. And I've played with him just randomly in multiple World Series events. He's like the pro I've played with the most for whatever reason. And he limps a fair amount. And he does it in kind of like a feel playery way, it seems like, which is unrelated to our strategy that we came up with. But I had just been at the World Series playing with him and watching him limp and watching him be really thoughtful about how he played in all of these spots. I was like, what if we just created a limping strategy to see what it was like? I want to try that out. It was like, it looked fun. So we decided to try it.
I mean, also, like, I definitely employ overbets against certain opponents at times, more than like at bigger amounts than I would have in the past, for sure. Like, I find myself once in a while, I'm like, this is a perfect spot to make a big bet. And instead of betting the pot, I bet 1.5 times the pot or 1.7 times the pot. And it's been profitable overall, for sure. It's been better. Grant is definitely working on the Sean Wintering thing all the time. Like, seriously, like in his game, I feel like you do that more than me. And it's something that I when I hear you talk about it, I think like I need to do that more too. Like, I see the value of it. So I think we are trying to incorporate all that stuff. Everything we talk about like sort of filters through, it trickles down to us, and it makes us better players. All of this too is ultimately useful, I think, for most players who are serious about the game, even if they're not professionals like Grant and I, because sometimes you're playing against really good players. Even at a 1-3 table, it's not that unusual for there to be 1 or 2 good players at that table, like legit good players. Sometimes they're waiting to be playing a bigger game, sometimes not. Or if you're playing 5-5 or 5-10 or whatever, there's going to be good players at those tables. And being able to have an arsenal for those guys too, not just to try and take the money from the really bad players. Being able to at least hold your own against those guys so they don't pick on you, or you have a plan, is really useful. And all of the, like, so when us doing our podcast has continually giving me new weapons to take against the pros at the table, the other pros at the table, instead of sort of like, well, we'll just stay out of each other's way. And like, sometimes, sure, but sometimes I might go after that guy too if I feel like, because I feel like I have certain tools that I can do it with.
I love the way that you talk about that, because we all sometimes I feel like we bring the wrong weapons to the fight depending on who the opponent is. Like, so like I think in a lot of the low stakes games that our audience is playing, you know, you don't need to be that sophisticated, and you're probably going to fancy play syndrome yourself into a loss if you like try and out level a couple too many times the players across from you. But of course, just like having more tools in your arsenal can only make you more effective. How do you? Let me ask you this one for the audience, guys. How do you identify players when you sit down at the table as being less experienced? What are the ways that they give off that information to you?
Well, open limping, despite me just talking about my limping strategy,
Yeah.
is usually a big red flag for that. It's not always. Sometimes there's very good players who open limp. I play with some on a regular basis. Bet sizing in general. And it, like, if you get at least a couple hands in where you see a couple different bets and the board texture is the same and they're betting different amounts because they have different hands, you know, that type of thing. That's a really big one. Those are the two main ones that I use.
I mean, a lot of people will show themselves in their 3-bet sizing. I would say some people just 3-bet way too small, and they just can't be very good when they do it. You know, someone has aces, but it's been raised and there's been 4 callers and they click it back. And so everyone's forced to call, and now we're seeing the flop 5 ways, and we're in the small blind with aces. Like, ooh, that's just an amateur decision. That's a pro would never do that. Also, a lot of river bet sizing and even just decisions to bet or not, I think, show up. So even distinguishes like pretty good players from very good players. Where like I play with a bunch of pretty good players who I think make pretty big mistakes about the hands they choose to bet on the river versus not. Where to me that's like a clear check back, and they're like betting there, you know. So like stuff like that, like you get to see a few showdowns. You get to notice, as Grant saying, their sizing at different spots. It's usually pretty obvious. Even the way they handle their chips, though. Obviously, some people will handle their chips and be very bad at poker, but the people who can't handle the chips at all, they're almost never any good, right? Like, because they just haven't been at the table much.
Yeah. I've intentionally resisted the urge to learn how to shuffle the chips. So and now I feel like I can use that as like a counter tell in my own arsenal against the pros.
It could work a little bit. Could work
You
a little
never
bit.
know.
For like one hand or 2 hands, maybe. Yeah.
That is the thing. I mean, if you're paying attention, you do sort of see how comfortable people are. And I think the examples that you used about sizing is a very clear indicator as well. So when you guys go through the show and you're doing the hands, you've talked a bit about like sort of what you enjoy about it and the experience and what you gain from it. Do you think of your show as being educational or entertainment, or is it exactly both? Do you intentionally bring the conversation along in a way that engenders learning with the audience, or is it really just a byproduct of you guys having an interesting conversation about hands?
Grant likes to call it entercation.
Why do you make things like this up? Why do you do that?
It really rolls off the tongue. That sounds like a Grantism. Yeah.
Like it's such a healthy thing for the audience, the entercation. I feel like at any moment we're in one of two sort of gears, and it really shifts back and forth for me anyway, where when we're talking about the hand, we are trying to be educational, sometimes for ourselves as well. But, you know, we go so deep into these hands. We'll spend 40 minutes talking about this one hand and the 7 decisions. We're really going deep into it. That's really sincere. And that's meant to be, you know, hopefully that's either enjoyable for someone listening, and it's going to be educational, I think, for most of our audience. But there's some like little antenna for me, which like gets flagged every few minutes where I'm like, oh, we've been really dry for a while. It's time to throw a you know, some gum in the works there, so gum in the engine, and try and mess Grant up a little bit. Let's insult him, or just you know, try and screw him up in some way and see what happens. You know, that'll be fun. And so there's that for me anyway. So entercation.
I think
Kate, I've already forgotten it. It was that much of a tongue twister.
Entercation.
Yeah.
I
Oh, that
think
was
the
it.
baseline of the podcast is educational. That's kind of where it was born. It was born in an educational place. And I kind of think of us as like the fun professors, sort of, is a way to think of it. It's like the class that you want to go to because they're going to be weird and they're going to swear and they're going to say inappropriate things, but you're still going to learn the thing that you signed up to learn for.
I like that. We've got one comment from the YouTube chat here. Fred saying, I once led a PokerStars live event and the writer said I stacked chips like his son does Legos. Yeah, not nice, he says. That's right. I mean, you don't know that. Maybe the writer's son had a very impressive Lego. Like maybe he
you
was
never
some
know.
sort of like, you know,
The
a
kid's
savant.
shuffling the Legos. He's just shuffling those green and blue blocks.
Do like the like DNA patterns with them and things. You don't know. You don't know, Fred. Go find that writer and see. Maybe it was the compliment of a century, and you've been missing out this whole time. But yeah, that's right. That does seem like one. What don't you look forward to? I know you guys kind of do these in batches now, so you get together remotely, I'm guessing, and record a bunch of these episodes all in a row. Is there any part of the job, the post-production, the selecting hands, now that body odor is no longer an issue, being in different areas, what's the number one complaint that you have about your job?
Post-production, 100%. We've done our damnedest to reduce the amount of work we've done in post, and you can see that through our videos over the years if you wanted to. There was a time early in our videos where we were putting a lot of time in, like 4 hours each into one video, which I know is not a lot for people who make videos, but for us it was a lot. And we slowly did less and less and less, and until we eventually hired a video editor, because we're like, fuck it, we're not going to do this anymore. And then we stopped making those types of videos altogether. So yeah, post-production has always been something that I never, like, I guess when we were first learning the video stuff, there was some cool elements to it and we had a little fun with it. But overall, I was like, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do that at all.
I mean, the podcast itself, which we do on sort of one take like this, you know, it's not live, but we never edit it or anything. It's just like record, okay, we're done, and we put it out with music on the front and the back. We would more or less have that conversation anyway, whether we recorded it or not. Maybe not to that depth, because we and maybe not that formally, but essentially we would talk about interesting hands and try and piece them together, and we'd mess around while we were doing it and joke around. So in some ways, that part is a pleasure. You know, that's just like, I get to hang out with Grant. It's really nice. I now live 4,000 miles away from him, and it's a way that we hang out, and it's a really awesome way to hang out with them. So yeah, and most of the other stuff, we sort of created this whole situation where we don't have to put much time into it, which we love. But yeah, I agree. The video editing is always the hardest and least fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that really speaks to me. We do a lot of, you know, a lot of our training material and a lot of our video content here stems from the very beginning. We just said, okay, guys, like, what would you be doing anyway to make yourself better at poker? Let's get a few people in a room, share that conversation. And, you know, like yourselves, we kind of press start record and stop record, and we get some help from some fantastic folks like Roger Schutte, who works on every single episode of the podcast that we release as a volunteer. God bless that sainted man. And we've got you know, fantastic folks, like I say, that help us out around here. But yeah, we're a pretty low post-production group as well, and it's kind of just because you gotta love it, right? And you know, doing the things that you love. We're all pretty lucky. We're all pretty lucky fellas. Jonathan, you're no longer in Portland. It sounds like you're down in Costa Rica full time now. How long has that been, and what's it like being separated from your poker buddy?
Oh, it's heaven. I've been down here. I'm actually in Puerto Rico, but it's a common mistake. Everyone gets that wrong. Weirdly enough,
I don't know why I said that. Yes,
it happens constantly.
Anyway,
it's great to be away from Grant. Although I will say actually, so before I left, the week before I left, I was at Grant's home with his 3-year-old daughter and his wife, and I was saying goodbye to them. And his daughter was, who I'm very close with. We get along really well, and she was sort of not entirely understanding that I was leaving for a while, but not really getting it, like the full thing of it. And I felt sad about leaving his family and him, and like actual sadness. And his wife cried a little bit. It was like, yeah, it was. So that did happen. Also, there was a moment.
What's the live poker scene like there? Do you get to play?
Oh, I get to play. Yeah, I'm in a so there's two different versions of it, like there is everywhere, right? There's sort of the casino games and the home
Right.
games. The
Yeah.
casino games in Puerto Rico are not really worth playing. The rake is insane. It's 10% up to $20 in most places. Plus, they also drop like $7 to $10. So they can take as much as $30 out of every pot. There's also only like like 3 or 4 tables happening on the whole island at any time. But there are home games, and I'm in a crazy home game with crazy players, and I'm figuring out how to adjust to them. There's a lot of money getting thrown around in these games. It's not what I'm not used to. I'm used to playing against, like, in card rooms, like very serious people. These are guys who have a lot of money and are used to talking about their hands in the middle of the hand, no matter how many other players are in it, and all sorts of stuff like that. It's just very common, and no one thinks anything of it. And it's all run on credit. It's all credit. It's wild.
Okay, what could go wrong?
Wild.
Great.
I mean,
yeah.
Apparently it's gone okay so far, but I'm slightly concerned about it. But everyone seems very nice, and so far so good with that. But yeah, there's some big pots in these games. This is the biggest game I've ever been in, for sure, in my life.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
It's fun. It's pretty fun.
Well, you guys have both played a lot of live poker. What's the sort of biggest anger, tilt, freak out you've ever seen yourself as a spectator at a live poker event?
Does it count if a guy died of a heart attack? Does that count as a freak out?
I mean, yes. Yes,
I didn't see that. I didn't see someone die.
I was in the room. This happened at the old Portland Poker Club Encore during one of their big tournaments at the time. It was a $200 tournament. Apparently, he got kings against aces, lost. I'm sure he was not a healthy man. Had a heart attack, and I don't know if he actually died, but he was removed by medical personnel.
Oh, come on! He didn't even die.
He might have.
No good.
We don't know. He's probably not alive anymore. That was like 10 years ago.
For sure, he's dead now.
Sounds like he wasn't very healthy already. I mean, odds are,
that,
you know what, Grant? You're right. He probably is dead by now.
Does that count as tilt? Does dying count as tilt?
I mean, maybe.
I mean, how about a different story where no one dies?
I will say, so in the game I'm in, even there's a guy who, when he loses in a bad beat, he takes his chips and literally throws them across the table at you. And like, it could be a lot of chips. I had them thrown at me a few days ago, actually. And he screams at the dealer and screams a little strong. He yells at the dealer. It's a whole thing. He really does not take it well at all and really blames the dealer for it. And that is interesting because, I don't know, it's just really interesting to watch, and I'm getting the chips that they were thrown. They didn't hit me, in fairness, but they were all thrown at and towards my person. And I've seen him do that before too. And I'm always like, whoa, I've just never seen anyone do that in any real way. And he's like, and it's like across the table, and it's a lot of chips, but like no one ever gets hurt.
That, like, once you see that like 2 or 3 times from the same guy, you're like, okay, this guy, this is no longer just like a impulse control issue. Like I think he might be getting some fun out of that. I think at this point, this feels like it's on purpose.
I mean, I will say, I think he really he doesn't need to vent later because he vents right away. And that's healthy, probably.
Right, it's true.
I mean, I keep it all in those spots, and I deal with it later. I'm always trying to be that happy, like chill dude at the room, no matter what's going on. I'm always the good guy in the game to be with. Oh, no matter how bad it's going, I try and smile and be friendly. He doesn't do that, but maybe he's less likely to get cancer because he just lets it out,
Maybe.
I don't know.
Wow, Dr. Jonathan weighs in. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's right.
So I've got a couple more questions here. I want to give our YouTube chatters one more chance to get your questions in. We'll be wrapping up the interview portion of the show shortly. So you guys, you play a lot of cash games. If you're playing in a casino and they have like a high hand promotion or a bad beat or something like that, some places will have like a code word to use it with the blinds so that you don't chop and you get a chance to actually see a flop and see if you're going to make one of these promotions. Have you guys heard of that? And if so, do you have any suggestions for what the code word might be?
I mean, as someone who I used to play regularly in a room that always had high hand promotions, so I saw this a lot. Usually it's the code word should be fold, because you're losing money almost all, your expected value is negative trying to go for the high hand almost always in those spots.
Yes.
because they're going to take a rake from your blinds, and it's not worth sometimes maybe the high hand is so much, but like if it's $500 or $1,000, it's almost never worth it. It's so hard to make those high hands almost always. So in terms of cohorts, I would say don't have them. Don't do it, man. Just don't do it. I used to force people because people would I'd be in the big blind or the small blind, and they would always want to go for it. They'd look at their hand and say, no, let's not chop. Because I used to play limit hold'em where we chopped a lot if it fell to the blinds. And I would say, as long as you give me a refund on my blinds, that's fine. Like then we can see a flop, but you're paying the rake and I'm getting my money back. And then you can do anything you want. But otherwise, I have no interest in that because I'm an expected value person through and through. So it's a money losing play. I'm not interested.
I appreciate that. Indulge me for a moment, though. Have you heard a particular code word used in the past? Could you supply a couple that you may have heard?
I have never heard it because people were very open about it where I played. So I've never heard anyone say, but it wouldn't be hard to say platypus and
give
them the old
the
1-2.
The old winky nudgy.
Yeah.
What about you, Grant? Anything slightly more realistic than platypus? No, nothing. All right.
No, I got nothing because our card room, we don't have a rake within the game. It's a door fee.
That's awesome.
So, it's a really good situation. Really good situation in Portland. $20 all day. Can play 5-5 with a 2K cap. It's amazing.
Wow.
It's the best that I've heard of. I haven't encountered that very much. And when I'm traveling for poker and playing at casinos, it's not like there's a bunch of regulars so that we have some code word, because it's at a series or something. So I don't really have much experience with that.
All right, Jim, I'm biting the dust on this one. Chris Jones is smiling happily in the background because we have a little side bet going on this that I'm not doing very well in at all. No, they opened a new card room just near where I live in Toronto here up in Canada. It is 10% up to $20, and it makes me want to throw up. Yeah, but like it's the only game in town, and they always have a huge wait list, and it drives me insane. And I don't know what to do. I kind of want to go play because how good can the poker players be if they're playing $10, $20?
If they're choosing to play with this rake, they must be terrible. So I better go play this rake too. That's good. That's awesome.
Right? Isn't that a fun way of thinking about it? Yeah.
Can you not just like create a home game if there's all these people who are playing? Is this not possible?
A lot of smart people have told me I should just start a home game.
Yeah.
It's probably the all right. Well, we'll take this conversation offline. But
fair enough. You should do that.
I probably should. It would be a lot of fun. And I've got so much free time. I mean, why not? Let's just do it. I love that idea. All right. So let me see. We got a question from JD Malay. What is some wisdom you've learned from playing poker that you apply to your life? Or, to be fair, he says, some wisdom you've learned from poker and you don't apply to your life. That is also an acceptable outcome.
I think the most applicable thing for me is tilt control. I have very good tilt control, and I think I have that naturally in life, but I think poker has taught me to beyond just the tilt control, the reason for the tilt, like not being results oriented is really important in poker. That's also important in life. Like I have a phrase that I use sometimes, which is black box it. Like if there's a thing that concerns me that I have no control over and I don't know what the outcome is going to be, there's no reason to think about it. So I black box it. So I think in poker, you can do that pretty easily once you play a lot. I mean, some people struggle with tilt control for their entire lives, but if you can control your emotions and do that in poker is kind of like a nice learning vessel for doing that in life as well.
That's good. For me, I'd say the game theory idea of distribution. So where you're trying to decide which part of my range am I going to continue with or not, and why, and figuring all that out. We go really deep in that a lot in our podcast because that's often how we come up with some of the solutions to why people did what they did. And that has absolutely not affected my life. I've not taken that anywhere else outside because there's nowhere to apply that except in poker.
All right. Well, thanks to everyone in the YouTube chat. I'll just tell the YouTube chatters we're going to do stake study stack with our guests here, and then we'll close the action with our speed round. If you want to start typing the words food bank into the YouTube chat right now, you'll enter our raffle. We're going to give away a fantastic prize at the end of the show to one person who just types the word food bank into the YouTube chat. And the reason we do this is because for a lot of people, you might be surprised at who It's just a difficult time to put food on the table right now, to feed a family, a loved one, or a child. And here at RecPoker, we try and take the stigma out of using the word rec. And we also try and take the stigma out of folks that just need a little help every once in a while, putting food on the table by visiting a local food bank. So we're going to give away a prize, a free month to one of our training partners' sites, or a free month here at RecPoker to one of our YouTube chatters. And I just want to encourage folks to pull out their smartphone, Google food banks near me, and you'll find a fantastic organization that can benefit from a few dollars out of your pocket, a few hours out of your week as a volunteer, or a few non-perishable food items from your pantry. It's just a great way to make a difference in your own neighborhood to people that need your help the most. All right. So while people are typing the words food bank into the YouTube chat, I guess that's the official end of the interview portion. Now that we have a soundboard, we can really make it official. Chris Jones, you are the man that Eric Ginn has tapped as the shepherd and steward of his fantastic segment, Steak Study Stack. Please introduce our guests to the concept, and good luck to both of you.
Yeah, Grant and Jonathan, we're going to do 2 segments, one for each of you this week. And so this is a game we call Steak Study Stack. I'm going to give you 3 names. You're going to pick one that you want to stake in a cash game or tournament, one who you want to study with, and one who you just like to take all of their chips and stack them at the table. Okay?
Okay.
And Grant, I'm going to start with you, and I have never done this before. I've never given my guest a choice, but I'm going to give you a choice in the list of friend or foe.
Foe.
All right, foe. This is the foe list. You are going to be choosing between Matt Berkey, Phil Hellmuth, and Alec Torelli.
Wow. Okay. I will study with Matt Berkey. I will stack Phil Hellmuth. Do I want to stake Alec Torelli?
Do you? I mean, there's elders everywhere who are, excited to learn from him. Maybe.
Yeah, I'll stake. I'll stake Hellmuth and I'll stack Torelli and I'll study
That's
with
the only
Berkey.
right answer. That's the only right answer, Grant. You had to do it that way.
All right, I love it. I love it. And if you had chosen the friend one, I would have asked you about Angela Jordison, Jackie Burkhart, and Stuart Young. So you can just think about that in your
Wow. Oh, it's better. No one else
Interesting.
knows who those people are, though.
Well,
it's
all
better
right.
to do it with the famous people.
2 of them have been on our show.
Okay. Oh, Angela. I mean, people know who Angela is, but okay.
Anyway.
I mean, come on.
All right. Well, Jonathan.
I didn't realize I'm insulting anyone.
Well, we like to
go ahead.
cut. Okay, so Jonathan, I'm going to ask you about. You're a big TV fan. You often talk about television. So I'm going to ask you about 3 anti-heroes.
Cool.
Your names are Walter White from Breaking Bad, Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones, and Logan Roy from Succession.
Wow. Those are great shows. Oh, Succession's so good. Okay. Stake, stack, or study. All right. I am going to study under Walter White, because he's the guy. He's the smartest of those 3 for sure. Cersei is a mess in a lot of ways, and Logan Roy, while effective, is sort of a bully and sort of has 50s sensibilities. I don't think it would work as well. So we're going to study Walter White. We're going to have to. I guess I have to stake Logan Roy. He's so successful. He's done so well. And Cersei did have power for a little while, but not that long. She took herself from sort of nothingness all the way to like the head of the kingdom. So that is pretty impressive. But Logan Roy is on top for most of his life. So I guess we have to stake him. He's a billionaire. Yeah. Sorry, Cersei.
Good answer. And I will jump in that Cersei she was basically born on third base as well. Like, come on, let's not give her that much credit. She didn't start down here. Yeah. Well, I mean, now I wish I could remember. The Lannisters, they've controlled they've controlled the purse of the realm.
You are correct.
For generations, I think, at this point.
That's a really good point. That's an excellent point.
But all right, now that the nerd off has subsided, we are going to close the action. So, guys, we talked about this when we have a powerful combo duo like yourselves. We're going to alternate rapid fire questions here, and we are looking for honest, quick, fast responses. And if you're taking too long, you can say pass. We don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. But if you're taking too long, we're gonna bring in the buzzer and the soundboard.
Nice.
Soundboard. I mean, I'm loving the soundboard. This is great. How much fun is this? All right. So who wants to go first, fellas? And then we'll kick this baby off.
Jonathan, go first.
All
All
right.
right, Jonathan will go first. Let's enter closing the action. All right, Jonathan, we're gonna start off with an easy one here. What is your favorite poker hand?
Queen Jack suited.
Grant, is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Skill.
Jonathan, what is your biggest poker pet peeve?
People who tank unnecessarily.
Jonathan, or sorry, Grant, I'm going to stop saying your names because it's confusing
Yeah.
to me. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
No.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
No.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Oh, come on.
What about a taco? Is a taco a sandwich?
Yes, and so is a hot dog.
What's one thing that you are afraid of?
Ghosts.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Lazy.
What about a calzone? Is a calzone a sandwich?
No.
What's your favorite poker venue?
Ooh, the Win?
How do you grapple with the concept of your own mortality?
Nihilism.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Percent, yeah.
Yellow light coming up, slow down or speed up?
Slow down.
Okay, what about an open face sandwich? Is an open face sandwich a sandwich?
It's called an open face sandwich. It's got to be a sandwich. It's a category of sandwich.
If I stand in a garage, does that make me a car? Come on, Jonathan, use your brain. Who's your favorite musical artist?
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Who's your poker nemesis?
Matt Berkey.
Is a Pop-Tart a sandwich?
No.
All right. Last question then, and I guess this one's coming to you, Jonathan. If someone came up to you and put a loaded gun to your head and said, Jonathan Levy, you have to go back in your life, and even though you've done everything perfectly in your life up until now, you have to go back and change one thing and do one thing differently. What's the one thing you would do differently?
I'd buy a lot more Bitcoin in 2010.
Yeah. Good answer. Good answer. All right. Well, I'm just doing some quick math here. I'm going to have to use a multiplier because you were working with the disadvantage of only getting half the questions each. 1,213 points. That's not quite a high score, but that's a very good score, guys. Over 1,200. That puts you in very elite company. You should feel very proud of yourselves.
I was going for 1,100. I was hoping for 1,100, so I'm pretty happy. You know,
You should be really happy.
I want to know about the scoring just a little bit. And I want to understand when Grant kept saying no to all the sandwich things, was that helping us or hurting us?
Well, I don't want to give away, like we have a
okay.
proprietary system that we use to score this. There's like Oompa Loompas on this side, and then we have a very, very impressive AI model that actually lives on this side of the home office, and they interface organically. It's fantastic. But maybe when you have us on your show, we can take you behind the curtain.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. When's that going to happen, jerks? What, like, it's like the third time we at least have Chris on, for God's sake. He's like the patron saint of your Discord.
He's basically on the show anyway. We talk about him every week.
We had Daniel Negreanu on our show and we got half the listens. We're not a guest show.
Really?
Yeah.
So you haven't even, well, that's what I'm saying. So like, think about the effect, the Chris Jones effect.
Oh yeah. We haven't tried the Jones effect.
Factor that in. I'll let you do with that what you will. Guys, this has been so much fun. I knew it would be. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your time with us. If folks want to, I mean, obviously they can look up Dos Poker Bros online, and that's an easy way to find you. What's the best way for people to say thanks for coming on the show? Is it to subscribe to the podcast? Is there a newsletter? Is there a social media handle that you prefer? Where can folks find you, and what should they sign up for?
The podcast is a great place. The Breakdown Poker Podcast.
Is that what it's called? Okay, great.
Yep, the Breakdown Poker Podcast. You can join our Discord, which is in the show notes for all of our podcasts and all of our videos. You can buy our book. That's a pretty good way to do it. It's called How Can He Fold?
How Can He Fold?
Came out in 2019, but more relevant than ever, of course.
And with today's headlines, you bet.
Yeah, because of all the folding that's happening.
Yeah. Mysterious folding. Or like, how can that even happen? Someone should write a book about this. Thank you guys for doing that.
Yep. I think that's all I got. Jonathan, anything else?
I mean, our Twitter is 2 Poker Guys, the number 2 Poker Guys on Twitter, or X, as they say. Yep, that's it. We have a YouTube channel. You can find us there too. There's a lot of videos.
All right. Well, guys, thanks again. I'm already looking forward to bending your ear another time. I hope sometime in the not too distant future. In the meantime, keep up the great work. You're doing a great service to the poker world. We all appreciate your efforts. And I would say that you have left quite a legacy, even if one of you were to be hit by a bus tomorrow and replaced by a chimpanzee on LSD. I think, there would be a slight drop off in quality, but feel proud of what you've done. Seriously, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. You guys represent a great corner of the poker world, the
Yeah.
non-scummy corner. So I appreciate
really-
that.
Cheers. I love to hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That non-scummy is the nicest thing anyone's ever said about me.
Yeah. All right,
No, I
thanks,
really
guys.
do appreciate it. Thanks, fellas. That's awesome.
All right.
All right. Well, let's have John Somsky on. We're going to talk about some recent home game results. We're also going to be talking about some new study groups that are going on this week. And of course, the World Series of RecPoker. And we're going to give away a fantastic prize to one of our YouTube chatters. Although I only see 3 people entering the words food bank into the chat. So you could enter right now for free and have no less than a 25% chance of winning the prize. But I dither. John Somsky, pray, discuss some recent home game results.
Well, K-Poker wannabe Ron Payton got his fourth
Hey.
nightly victory for the year. Carl,
In the YouTube chat now.
0621. Carl Anderson got his first nightly victory
Right.
for the year. Matty Bumpo got his first
Hmm.
nightly victory for the year. Graphic 16 Roger Schutte got his second daily mixed victory.
Amazing.
Max Chaos 2112 Greg Clem got his first international victory. Binkley Eric Jin got his first international victory. And it should be noted he's up to 26
Wow.
lifetime, so he's
Impressive.
approaching.
Mhm.
One Jack Black got his first LPP victory, so he can contact info@rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
That's right. Send that email to info@rec.poker. You are the winner of our Sunday tournament. And just like the podcast on Sunday, like many of our home games, I mean, they're all free to enter, and you can win real prizes for playing, like these snazzy Rec Poker pins. Or even on Sundays, you can win that free month of Learn Pro Poker, compliments of Ryan LaPlante and the fantastic team that he has over there at Learn Pro Poker, one of our earliest learning partners and a great longtime friend of the show. Rob Washam, do you have something to add to this portion of the
Yes.
show?
First of all, I don't believe Matty Bumpo is a he.
Yes, I was going to
just
wonder if
thought
that
I'd
was
let
a he or she.
No,
Yes.
I know exactly who she is, so it's not a he.
That's one of the issues I have. I'm just kind of guessing based on the names, and
I know. Well, then you say he or she.
I should be doing that.
I didn't want her to feel insulted by you calling her him.
John, you're
Anyway.
just such a terrible person, John Somsky.
Pretty much.
Just trying to ease the pressure there a little bit.
No, I appreciate any corrections.
All right, we've got the ROI standings for May.
Amazing.
We talked about this before. The top ROI person in May can join us on the podcast of their choosing. If they see a guest that they really want to meet and communicate with, basically in person through Zoom, they can join us. So number 1 was a Wrecking Crew member. It was East Coast Bitter,
Hey.
Ben Enslow. Number 2 was Cosmo Girl KW.
Oh, fantastic. I know exactly who that is.
I don't know who that is, but I believe they're fairly new.
They are. Congratulations. I know exactly who that is. That's awesome.
And then number 3 was Tom Binkley. So again, he doesn't count. That's Eric Jin, our own Wrecking Crew member. And then it fills out with Jasper Jr., Matty Bumpo, Stewie 13, and M. Babker, which we all know as Michael Babker. So
fantastic.
A lot of regulars there, except for Cosmo Girl KW was a new person that is making big waves in the Rec Poker home game.
And was Cosmo Girl the number 1 premium player this month?
Correct.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
So I'll make that public, because I know Cosmo Girl has been sharing her results on Twitter as well. that is none other than Christina Sukram, who is the person that the Pocket Queens mentorship group has put me in touch with. So she and Christina and I have been getting together and talking poker strategy over the last few months. And I am so stoked to see her in there leading the ROI results for all the premium members at RecPoker. Way to go, Christina. If you're listening, congratulations. I know you've put a lot of effort in.
142% ROI.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Well, making me look good, Christina. Keep it up. That's fantastic. Way to go. And I will just mention, so we do have a couple events coming up that I want to draw people's attention to. If you're listening to this live and you're a premium member, not only can you join us at the top of the hour in about half an hour to record the forums edition of the podcast, where we'll be talking about strategy, you can also join us on Thursday this week, Thursday, June 6th. We'll be having our first of a few crossover events with the 100K Studios crew, Rob Gardner's fantastic group, the 100K Pros and their wonderful community over there. They're going to be hosting, they do regular study groups on Thursday, June 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern. All RecPoker Premium members are welcome to join the 100K crew in one of their study groups. And then on Saturday, we'll be welcoming the 100K group into one of our own study groups. I do a monthly Poker Tracker 4 review. I'll be doing that on Saturday, June 8th at 1 p.m. And this episode comes out on Friday. So if you're listening to this the day it comes out, you still have a chance to join me, some premium members, some Wrecking Crew members, and some new friends from 100K on Saturday, the 8th at 1 p.m. Eastern. I hope you do. We're going to have some fun. We're going to look at a database from Eric Anderson, longtime contributor, and he's got some really fun stuff in there for us to take a look at. We're also starting the World Series of RecPoker. This is another collaboration with Rob Gardner and the 100K crew. So on Sundays, for 6 weeks, starting on June 9th and running until July 14th at 3 p.m. Eastern on every Sunday, you'll be able to join for free a game hosted in the Poker Now platform, which is such a fantastic way to play poker with your friends for free. We use it here for a lot of our learning material and study events. So you can find out more information at rec.poker/WSORP. And they'll be giving away some real prizes there, some coaching sessions with Rob Gardner, some premium memberships here at RecPoker, some swag, some other fun stuff like that. And again, those are on Sundays at 3 o'clock Eastern. Find out more at rec.poker/WSORP. All right. Well, exciting stuff happening. And I guess also on the 15th, I'll just shout this out because the Heads Up series on Saturday, June 15th is coming up. I believe that's at 2 p.m. Eastern. And that's how you can win your way in to Marek Madness 2025. So you don't want to miss that, folks. All of this stuff, unless it's a premium study group, a lot of this stuff is just free, available for our community members. And we love doing this kind of free poker work. We love sort of spreading our love of poker with the rest of the world. So come join us and take part in that. All right, Chris Jones, it's time. We've got the DiceOcam set up. I only see 3 names in the YouTube chat. Crazy. So someone's got a 1 in 3 chance of winning. Right. And you've got a 4-sided die there, don't
more
you?
People
you
watching,
big nerd.
But nobody's typing food bank, so
people don't want to. People don't want to win a prize. Support a local food bank. If it's a 4, I'll donate $20 to a local food bank here, and we'll roll again.
All right.
Who's the winner?
Away we go. It is a 3.
All right, that is K-Poker Wannabe. Ron Payton, no stranger to the winner's circle here on the RecPoker podcast. You know what to do, my friend. Send that email to info@rec.poker. And I believe I think you are already a RecPoker Premium member, in which case you have won a month of free membership at one of our fantastic learning partners. If I list them now, I'll forget one, so I'm not going to, but there are a bunch of really good ones. And if you're not a RecPoker Premium member, then congratulations, you've won a free month at RecPoker, and you're really going to enjoy that as well. So send that email, info@rec.poker, and we'll get you all hooked up. All right, gang. Again, bummer about the Running Aces event in August that we're not going to be able to do that, but we will get a chance to do something else fun as well sometime soon. If you enjoy the show and you want to help us out, head to rec.poker/support. And you can see ways to help us out without spending a buck. Or you can also buy us a cup of coffee. And speaking of cups of coffee, I'll be down in Las Vegas from June 21st through July. We'll see exactly when I decide to leave. But this is the first year I bought the one-way ticket down. Pray for my soul. But I will be there starting on June 21st. And I start basically every morning I'm playing a tournament in the food court in the basement of the Horseshoe there. It's a fantastic place. They've got a decently priced breakfast sandwich and a hot cup of coffee. And if anyone wants to hang out and prep before any of the tournaments for the series this summer, if I'm there, I'm going to be in that food court pretty much every morning for breakfast. So maybe I'll see you there. Does anybody else want to add anything? Chris, do you have something you want to jump in with before we roll on out of here? All right. Well, I really want to thank Dos Poker Bros for being fantastic guests. Grant and Jonathan are always a pleasure to speak to. Of course, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. John Somsky, Rob Washam, Chris Jones for making all the magic happen here. The other fantastic folks like Roger Schutte, Michael Babker, Renz Isidro. We just couldn't do what we do without you. So thanks to everyone for all your help. You, the listeners at home, we'll see you next week on the RecPoker Podcast. Have a good night, everybody.